Elias Renner had dreamed of stepping onto an alien world ever since he was a boy back on Earth. He had read about the great warrior species of the galaxy, about civilizations so ancient and powerful that humanity seemed like children by comparison. And now, at just 20 years of age, he was standing on the stone platform of the Ralket capital, with 2 suns blazing overhead and thousands of alien eyes fixed on him. The air smelled of dust, iron, and fire. The Ralket homeworld was harsh, a land of jagged mountains and crimson skies where storms swept across deserts and forests full of predators prowled in endless hunger. Humanity had only recently been allowed to set foot here, and only as part of a diplomatic mission. Elias had not been supposed to come. He was the son of one of the aides in the Terran embassy, and he had begged to accompany the mission. His mother had argued against it, but the ambassador had allowed him, thinking that one more youth would not matter. The boy had promised he would only watch, never interfere. But standing now before the alien warriors, he realized how foolish that promise had been. The Ralket were enormous, towering nearly 3 meters tall with thick hides like armor and tusk-like ridges jutting from their jaws. Their muscles rippled as they moved, and their eyes gleamed like polished obsidian stones. Every one of them carried scars, and every scar was considered an honor. They lived by strength, by the hunt, by combat. To them, respect was not given freely. It was earned in blood, sweat, and survival, and Elias was here, thin and pale, standing in simple Terran clothing, with no scars, no battles, and no strength worth showing. The Ralket gathered in a great amphitheater, their stone seats carved into a circle around a central platform. At the far end, seated on thrones of black stone, sat the Ralket elders, leaders of their clans, their hides painted in patterns of red and gold. The ceremony had begun with songs of battle, drums pounding like thunder and the stamping of heavy boots. Then the elders had spoken. They had declared that a Terran youth would be tested, so the Ralket could judge what kind of people humans truly were. Elias had felt pride at first. He had thought, yes, I will show them that humans are not weak. He had stepped forward bravely, with the whole human delegation watching nervously from the side. But then came the trial. A weapon was brought out, a massive war spear carved from black steel longer than Elias was tall. It was the traditional weapon of the young Ralket, the first tool of any warrior who wished to earn their name. The elders had nodded toward him. Lift it, one of them growled in a voice like grinding stone. Elias had swallowed hard, stepped up to the weapon and bent to grab it. His fingers curled around the cold metal shaft. He pulled. The spear shifted slightly, then clattered back against the platform. His arms shook as he tried again, straining with all his might. He used both hands, he planted his feet, his teeth clenched, but the weapon barely moved. From the seats above came a rumble of laughter. Deep voices mocked him. Some warriors roared out words he could not understand, while others jeered in the human trade tongue. Weak, soft Terran, child of clay. Elias's face burned hot. Sweat dripped down his forehead as he tried one last time, lifting with everything he had. The spear rose a few inches, then slipped from his grip and crashed to the ground again. The laughter grew louder, echoing like thunder around the amphitheater. Ralket children, barely into their training years, leapt down and easily hoisted the spear high, waving it as though it weighed nothing. Their elders roared in approval, slapping their chests, stamping their feet, the whole arena shaking with mockery. Elias stood frozen. His arms hung uselessly at his sides. His heart pounded painfully in his chest. He had never felt so small, so humiliated. The elders leaned forward, their dark eyes gleaming with disdain. This is the strength of Terrans? One of them asked, his voice carrying easily over the noise. They send us a child who cannot even lift a weapon? The jeers continued. Warriors pointed and laughed, some mimicking the way Elias had strained and failed. Others turned their backs, a gesture of contempt in their culture. Elias wanted to disappear. He wanted to sink into the stone floor and vanish. But even as the shame burned in him, another feeling rose. Anger. Not at the Ralket, not even at the impossible task, but at himself. He had dreamed of this moment, and now he had been found wanting. He clenched his fists. His nails bit into his palms. He wanted to scream at them that humans were more than muscle, more than brute strength. He wanted to shout that his people had survived their own harsh world, had built cities, sailed oceans, reached the stars. But his throat was dry and his words stuck. From the side, he caught sight of his mother. She was pale, her hand pressed to her mouth, her eyes wide with fear for him. The Terran ambassador beside her shook his head sadly. They had warned Elias not to stand out. Now he had embarrassed not only himself but the whole mission. The laughter faded only when one of the elders raised a clawed hand. The arena grew quiet, though chuckles still rumbled through the crowd. The elder's voice was calm but sharp. The trial is complete. The Terran has failed. He is no warrior. His kind is weak. Elias's stomach twisted at those words. Failed. Weak. He wanted to protest, but his voice would not come. The elder turned away, dismissing him as if he were nothing. The crowd began to file out, still laughing, still mocking. The Ralket had already forgotten him, already decided his worth. But Elias had not forgotten. As he stood on the emptying platform, the weight of the failed trial crushing him, he made a silent vow. He would not leave this world as a laughingstock. He would not let them believe that humans were weak. Somehow, some way, he would prove himself, not by lifting their weapons, not by trying to copy their strength, but by showing them what it truly meant to be human. The suns dipped lower, casting long shadows across the amphitheater. The Terran delegation quietly led Elias back to their quarters, avoiding the eyes of the Ralket. He walked with his head down, every laugh and jeer still echoing in his mind. That night, as the alien city roared with feasts and hunts, Elias lay awake staring at the ceiling. He remembered the weight of the spear, the sound of laughter, the shame on his mother's face. His fists clenched again. His heart whispered the same vow over and over. I will prove them wrong. I will show them the strength of Terrans. The next morning dawned with pale golden light spilling across the jagged peaks of the Ralket Mountains. The city of Vortok, built of black stone and crimson banners, was already alive with noise. Warriors gathered in the plazas, their armor clanking, their voices loud and booming. The air carried the scent of burning oils, roasted meats, and the metallic tang of sharpened blades. Elias Renner sat quietly at the edge of the Terran quarters, staring at the world around him. His humiliation from the day before clung to him like a shadow. Everywhere he went, he felt alien eyes on him. Some stared with amusement, others with contempt, and when he walked past groups of Ralket children, he heard their laughter. They mimicked him straining to lift the great spear, their cruel jokes echoing in the streets. He clenched his fists but said nothing. Every insult dug deeper into him. That was when the summons came. A warrior messenger, broad-shouldered and scarred, approached the Terran delegation. His voice rumbled as he spoke to the ambassador. The elders decree that if the Terran boy wishes to redeem himself, he may join the rite of the hunt. Let him enter the wilds with our young hunters. Let him prove, if he can, that humans are not only children of clay. The ambassador's face had gone pale. That is madness, he whispered to Elias's mother. Their rites are not games, they are trials of death. But Elias, sitting silently, felt his heart stir. This was it. The chance he had been waiting for. A way to wipe away the shame. A way to prove that humans were not weak. I will go, Elias said firmly, surprising even himself. His mother gasped, but his eyes did not waver. If I fail, then let it be my failure. But I will not hide. By midday, Elias stood at the edge of the city, facing the endless stretch of wild forest beyond. Towering black trees twisted skyward, their branches clawing like talons. Strange cries echoed from within, calls of predators, sounds of unseen danger. The ground trembled faintly with the distant steps of massive beasts. Around him, a dozen young Ralket hunters gathered. Each towered over Elias, their hides painted with crimson streaks for courage. They carried spears, axes, and bladed gauntlets. Their laughter rolled like thunder as they looked down at the human youth among them. Why send him? One sneered. He will slow us down. Perhaps he can carry our packs, another joked. Or bait the beasts for us, a third added with a cruel grin. Elias said nothing. He kept his gaze on the forest, his jaw tight. At the front of the group stood Karoth the Unyielding, a veteran hunter, broad even among his kind. His hide bore scars of countless battles. and his tusked jaw made him look like a living statue of war. Kairoth was not young, but he had been chosen to lead the rite and ensure tradition was kept. His dark eyes swept over Elias, unreadable. "The wilds will not spare you," Kairoth said, his deep voice carrying easily. "Out there, strength decides who lives and who dies. If you fall behind, we will not wait. If you falter, the beast will feast on your bones. Do you still choose to walk this path?" Elias felt fear coil in his chest. Every instinct screamed at him to turn back. But he straightened, lifted his chin, and answered, "I choose it." Kairoth studied him for a long moment, then gave a single nod. "Then step into the wilds, Terran. May your blood be strong." The hunt began. The young hunters moved swiftly through the forest, their heavy feet crunching the soil, their voices loud as they boasted of glory. Elias struggled to keep pace. The terrain was rough, roots twisted across the ground, and the air was heavy with strange scents. Insects buzzed like tiny machines. Shadows shifted where unseen creatures prowled. Already, Elias's lungs burned. The Ralket strode effortlessly, their massive strides covering ground in moments. Elias had to run just to stay near them. Sweat soaked his shirt, and his legs trembled with effort. The hunters noticed his struggle. They laughed, tossing mocking words over their shoulders. "The Terran cannot run. Already he weakens. Go home, child." But Elias did not stop. He remembered Earth, how his ancestors had chased prey across plains, not with speed, but with endurance. He forced himself forward, step by step, breath by breath. His body screamed, but his will pushed him on. Hours passed. The suns dipped lower, painting the forest in slashes of gold. The hunters finally slowed, their nostrils flaring as they caught the scent of prey. Ahead, through the trees, came the sound of heavy movement. A Drakvar beast, a six-legged predator with scales like stone, was grazing in a clearing. The hunters spread out, gripping their weapons. Their eyes gleamed with excitement. Elias crouched low, watching. The beast was enormous, easily the size of a Terran transport vehicle. Its jaws dripped with saliva, and its claws gouged the earth. The Ralket charged with thunderous roars, their spears flashing. The beast roared back, striking with deadly speed. The clash shook the clearing. Spears drove into scales. Claws ripped through armor. Dust and blood filled the air. Elias stayed back, heart pounding. He had no spear, no blade. What could he do against such a monster? Then he saw it. One young hunter had stumbled, falling directly into the beast's path. The creature's jaws opened wide, ready to snap down. Without thinking, Elias moved. He grabbed a broken branch from the ground and hurled it with all his strength. The branch struck the beast's eye. It was not enough to wound, but it startled the monster for a heartbeat. That heartbeat was enough for the fallen hunter to roll aside as another Ralket drove a spear deep into the beast's neck. The Drakvar roared, flailed, and finally collapsed. The hunters cheered, raising their weapons high, but their cheers turned into mocking laughter when they looked at Elias. "Did you see the Terran?" One jeered. "He throws sticks like a child," another howled. "Perhaps he thinks to tame beasts with twigs." Their voices stabbed at Elias, but he stood silently, chest heaving. He did not care for their laughter. He had saved one of them, even if they refused to see it. Only Kairoth's eyes lingered on him. The great hunter said nothing, but there was a flicker of thought in his gaze. Night fell in the wilds. The hunters built a fire in a clearing, roasting meat over the flames. They ate greedily, laughing and boasting of their kills. Elias sat apart, chewing on a strip of meat given grudgingly to him. His body ached from the long march and his eyes burned with exhaustion. Above, the alien stars spread across the sky, strange constellations glittering like shards of glass. Elias thought of Earth, of the familiar constellations he had known. Here he was, under another sky, surrounded by warriors who hated him. Yet even in his loneliness, a spark of determination burned. He whispered to himself, "I will endure. I will prove myself." In the shadows, Kairoth sat watching the fire. His gaze shifted once toward Elias, and for a moment, the fierce hunter's expression softened, not with pity but with curiosity. The rite of the hunt was far from over. The true danger still waited in the depths of the wilds. And though the other hunters laughed at the human, Karoth wondered silently if perhaps this Terran youth carried a strength the Ralket had never seen before. The second night in the wilds was colder than the first. Mist clung to the black trees and strange cries echoed in the darkness. The hunters slept in a loose circle, their heavy bodies sprawled across the ground, weapons within reach. But Elias lay awake, staring at the dim glow of the fire. Sleep would not come. His muscles ached from the endless march, and every bone in his body seemed to protest. The Ralket hunters had mocked him again for being slow, for stumbling, for daring to join them. Yet he had not turned back. Each step forward was another victory against their laughter. As he lay there, he heard a soft crunch of movement. His eyes flicked to the shadows where two glowing points of light blinked among the trees. His heart leapt. Something was watching. Before he could speak, Karoth's deep voice rumbled softly from the other side of the fire. "Do not shout, Terran. It has been circling us since nightfall." Elias turned his head. Karoth sat with his back against a rock, eyes half closed but alert. His hand rested on the shaft of his war spear. "What is it?" Elias whispered. Karoth's tusked jaw tightened. "A stalker. A true predator of these wilds. It studies us, waiting. It is clever. It knows to strike when we are weakest." Elias's blood ran cold. He swallowed hard, forcing his voice to stay steady. "Then why do the others sleep?" "They are young," Karoth said simply. "They believe strength is enough. But strength without vigilance is death." The glowing eyes vanished back into the forest. The mist thickened, muffling sound. Elias shivered. He knew then that this hunt was not just about chasing beasts. It was about survival against things that thought, planned, and killed without mercy. The next morning, the hunters rose and prepared to move deeper into the wilds. The air was tense. Their leader, Karoth, spoke little, but his eyes scanned the trees often. Elias could feel it too, a weight in the air like the forest itself was watching. They hunted smaller prey that day, scaled runners, quick creatures with sharp claws. The young hunters charged recklessly, competing with each other for kills. Their roars filled the air, their laughter loud and proud. But Elias hung back, studying the forest floor. He noticed broken branches, claw marks on bark, and tracks too large for the runners. They circled the hunters, weaving in and out of the undergrowth. Elias's chest tightened. "The stalker. It's following us." He said nothing at first, unsure if anyone would believe him. But when the group paused to drink from a stream, he walked slowly to Karoth. "It's here," Elias whispered. "It's been here all day." Karoth's dark eyes narrowed. "What have you seen?" Elias pointed to the claw marks and the broken branches. "It's watching. It's waiting for someone to fall behind." For a long moment, Karoth said nothing. Then he gave a small nod. "You have sharp eyes, Terran." But when Elias tried to warn the other hunters, they only laughed. "The Terran sees ghosts in the trees. Perhaps he fears the forest more than the beasts. Stay close, child, or shadows will eat you." Their mocking words stung, but Elias held his tongue. He remembered the vow he had made after his humiliation. He would prove himself through action, not words. That night, the stalker struck. The hunters had made camp in a wide clearing, torches burning bright. They sat boasting of their kills, slamming fists against chests. Elias ate in silence, eyes scanning the trees. The mist crept in thicker than before, curling like pale smoke. A low growl rumbled from the darkness. Before anyone could move, a shape burst from the shadows. It was enormous, sleek, black as midnight, with long limbs ending in hooked claws. Its eyes glowed silver in the torchlight, and its jaws were lined with fangs as long as daggers. The Skyfang stalker. The hunters shouted in alarm, scrambling to grab their weapons. The beast moved with terrifying speed, leaping into their circle. One young hunter was struck down instantly, claws raking across his chest. Another swung his spear, but the stalker slipped aside like liquid shadow and slashed his leg. Chaos erupted. Torches fell, fire scattered. The hunters roared, but their strikes hit only air. The stalker was too fast, too cunning. Elias's heart hammered in his chest. Fear froze him for a moment. He had never seen such a predator, never imagined something so terrifying, but then his eyes caught the pattern of its movements. The way it darted in, struck, then vanished into the shadows, circling. Always circling. It's testing us, Elias realized aloud. It's trying to scatter us. Karoth swung his great spear, driving the beast back for a heartbeat. Then speak, Terran, he growled. What do you see? Elias's mind raced. On Earth, hunters had once faced predators too. Wolves, lions, tigers. His ancestors had survived not by strength, but by patterns, by patience, by traps. He remembered reading about persistence hunts, about using strategy to outlast the stronger animal. Don't chase it, Elias shouted, his voice breaking through the panic. That's what it wants. It will pick us off one by one. We have to stay together, force it into a corner where it can't escape. The hunters ignored him at first, charging wildly. One paid the price, his throat torn open in an instant. Blood stained the ground, and the others faltered, fear creeping in. Elias ran forward, grabbing a fallen torch. His hand shook, but he raised it high. Circle up, he cried. Close ranks. Drive it into the canyon we passed earlier. It can't vanish in open rock. The hunters hesitated. Some scoffed. But Karoth's voice thundered, Do as the Terran says. The authority in his tone left no room for argument. The hunters closed ranks, shields up, torches blazing. Together they advanced, step by step, forcing the stalker back. The beast hissed, eyes blazing with hate. It darted left, then right, but the circle held. The firelight kept it from slipping into the shadows. With every step they herded it toward the canyon mouth. The ground trembled as the stalker roared and lunged. It struck at Elias, claws flashing. He barely dove aside in time, the torch falling from his grip. For a heartbeat, the beast loomed above him, jaws open. Then Karoth's spear slammed down, driving the creature back. On your feet, Terran. Karoth roared. Elias scrambled up, grabbed the torch again, and forced himself into line. His chest burned with fear, but he held steady. At last, the hunters forced the stalker into the canyon, a narrow passage of jagged rock. The beast roared, realizing too late it had been trapped. Spears rained down. Blades flashed. The hunters struck together, their combined strength overwhelming. The stalker fought savagely, but it could not escape. With a final roar that shook the earth, it collapsed. Silence fell. The hunters stood panting, blood and sweat covering them. Slowly, one by one, they raised their weapons and roared in victory. But Karoth did not roar. He turned his gaze on Elias, who still stood clutching the torch, chest heaving. You saw what we did not, Karoth said, his deep voice carrying. You guided us when our strength failed. Remember this, young hunters, wisdom is a weapon no beast can defeat. The others shifted uneasily. Some looked at Elias with reluctant respect. Others scowled, unwilling to admit a Terran had saved them. But none could deny the truth. Without Elias, many more would have died. For the first time since stepping onto this world, Elias felt the weight of shame lift slightly from his shoulders. He had not matched their strength, but he had given them victory. That night, as the hunters rested in the canyon, Karoth sat beside Elias. The firelight gleamed on his scarred face. You do not fight as we do, Karoth said. Your body is weak, but your mind, it is sharp. That is a kind of strength my people rarely honor. Perhaps we should? Elias looked at him surprised. You think I belong here? Karoth's tusked mouth curled in the faintest smile. You have already earned your place, Terran. The others will see it soon enough, and when the final trial comes, I will watch closely. Elias felt a warmth in his chest at those words. For the first time, a Ralket warrior had spoken not with mockery but with respect. He lay awake long after, staring at the alien stars. He knew the trials were not over. The wild still held dangers beyond anything he could imagine. But he also knew something had changed. He was no longer just the Terran who failed to lift a spear. He was Elias Renner, the one who saw what others missed, the one who guided hunters against the deadliest predator of the wilds. And in the shadows of the canyon, a bond was forming between him and Karoth, one that would soon be tested in fire and blood. The sun rose over the Ralket wilds with a harsh glare, cutting through the morning mist that clung to the jagged mountains. Elias Renner's muscles ached from the previous day's trials. His arms were sore from running, his legs stiff from climbing rocky slopes, and his lungs burned from the effort of keeping up with the Ralket hunters. Yet as he stood at the edge of the clearing, watching the sunrise, a fire burned inside him far stronger than his physical exhaustion. Today was the final day of the rite of the hunt. The elders had warned that this hunt would test every skill a warrior possessed: strength, endurance, courage, and cunning. The hunters had spoken in quiet tones the night before about the Skyfang stalker, the apex predator of the forest, a creature none had yet bested in the right. Elias knew what lay ahead. The previous encounter had been a warning, a test of vigilance and strategy. But now the final challenge would demand more than observation. It would demand courage in the face of death itself. Karoth stood before the group, his massive form silhouetted against the rising sun. His tusks gleamed and his scars caught the light like streaks of molten stone. He surveyed the hunters, then paused, his eyes landing on Elias. "You have survived where others would have fallen," Karoth said. "You have guided us when we were blind. Today, you will walk with me and we will face the final trial together. Do not falter." Elias swallowed hard but nodded. "I will do my best," he said, his voice steady. Karoth grunted. "Your best will need to be more than strong. It must be clever, brave, and unyielding." The hunters moved into the dense forest. Shadows stretched long across the ground as the sun climbed higher, and every sound seemed amplified. The rustle of leaves, the snapping of branches, the low growl of distant beasts. The tension was thick like a heavy fog. Elias struggled to keep pace but pushed himself. The forest was unlike anything on Earth. Twisted trees, jagged rocks, and creatures that watched from the shadows. Even the smaller predators were vicious and cunning. Hours passed as they tracked the Skyfang stalker. Karoth moved silently, his massive feet barely making a sound. The other hunters followed, their eyes sharp and their weapons ready. Elias noticed something he had not before. The way Karoth observed the forest, reading its patterns, sensing danger before it struck. The human boy realized that strength alone was useless here. Awareness and strategy were the real weapons of survival. Finally, the forest opened into a wide canyon. At its edge, the ground was littered with the bones of creatures that had fallen to the Skyfang stalker. The air was tense, heavy with the scent of blood and danger. Elias's stomach tightened. This was no ordinary hunt. This was a test of survival against something intelligent, something deadly. The stalker appeared. It emerged from the shadows like liquid darkness, its eyes glowing silver, muscles rippling beneath its sleek black hide. The hunters tensed. The creature circled them slowly, watching, testing. It was not just a beast, it was a predator with thought, patience, and deadly precision. The Ralket roared and charged, their weapons flashing in the sunlight. The Skyfang stalker moved like a shadow, dodging effortlessly. Claws struck, teeth snapped, and the hunters were forced to leap aside to avoid deadly blows. Elias's heart pounded, but he remembered Karoth's words. Strength alone was not enough. Observation, cunning, and courage would save them. He noticed a pattern. The stalker attacked the hunters who charged first, predicting their movements with terrifying accuracy. Those who stayed back, observed, and moved strategically were safer. Elias realized they could force the creature into a narrow part of the canyon, where it could not dodge or escape. "Karoth," Elias shouted over the chaos. "We need to trap it in the canyon. Don't let it pick us off one by one." Karoth's eyes met his. For the first time there was recognition, not of pity but of respect. He nodded once. "Then move, Terran. Guide us." Elias ran forward, shouting orders to the hunters, guiding them into positions along the canyon walls. Some listened reluctantly, others scoffed. But Karoth's presence lent authority to Elias's words. Slowly the hunters formed a coordinated line, herding the stalker into the trap. The creature realized too late that it was being funneled. It lunged with incredible speed, but there was no escape. Elias's heart pounded as he watched it try to twist free, striking at hunters along the way. Then, disaster struck. One young Ralket stumbled, and the stalker turned toward him, jaws snapping. Elias didn't hesitate. He ran, diving between the creature and the fallen hunter, grabbing a fallen branch and thrusting it into the creature's path. The stalker hissed, startled, giving the hunter a chance to roll aside. Karoth roared, charging forward with his spear. His strike drove the stalker back, but it was not enough. The creature was cunning, deadly, and desperate. Elias realized that brute force would not win this battle. The key was coordination. He shouted instructions, guiding each hunter's movements, predicting the stalker's attacks, forcing it toward the narrowest point of the canyon. The battle raged for what felt like hours. Dust, blood, and sweat filled the air. Torches and weapons flashed as the hunters moved as one, following Elias's strategy. Slowly, carefully, the stalker was cornered, and then Karath struck. With a powerful leap, he plunged his spear into the stalker's chest. The creature let out a roar that shook the canyon walls, then collapsed. Silence fell. The hunters stood panting, bloodied, but alive. The danger was over. Elias dropped to his knees, trembling from exhaustion. Karath walked over, towering and massive, his eyes scanning Elias carefully. "You have done what few could," Karath said, his voice deep and reverberating. "You have survived, guided us, and helped bring down the deadliest predator of our wilds. Terran, you have proven your worth." The other hunters looked at Elias differently now. No laughter, no mockery, only cautious respect. One of the younger hunters stepped forward. "The Terran? He saved my life," he admitted, voice hesitant. Others nodded, murmuring agreement. Elias stood slowly, still weak but proud. His heart swelled as he realized that finally the Ralket had begun to see him as more than a weak outsider. Karath placed a massive hand on Elias's shoulder. The touch was rough, scarred, but steady. "You fight differently than we do," he said. "Not with muscle, but with mind and heart. That is a kind of strength our people rarely honor. But I see it now, and I respect it." Elias felt a warmth he had never known. Respect from one of the Ralket's greatest warriors. He swallowed hard, trying to find words. I only did what I could," he said quietly. Karath smiled faintly, tusks glinting in the sun. "And that is enough. Today you have earned your place among us. Remember this, Terran. Strength is not only in the arm or the blade. It is in the courage to act when fear grips your heart, and in the mind to see what others miss." The other hunters began to cheer, raising their weapons high. Some clapped Elias on the back, others gave respectful nods. The human boy had become one of them. Not by blood, not by species, but by bravery, intelligence, and determination. Elias looked around the canyon. The bodies of the hunted lay scattered. The fire of torches flickered, and the wind carried the scent of victory. He felt a deep bond forming with the Ralket hunters, especially Karath. The great hunter's voice broke through the quiet. "Come, Terran. Walk with me. Today you are no longer an outsider. Today you are one of us." Elias's heart leapt. He had come to this alien world humiliated, mocked, and shamed. Now he stood victorious, respected, and accepted. And as he walked beside Karath, shoulder to shoulder, he knew that the trials were over, but the bond they had forged would last far longer than this hunt. For the first time, Elias felt truly at home among warriors who had once laughed at him, and Karath's gaze lingered on him, thoughtful. A bond had been formed, a bond that neither species could break. The sun rose higher, casting light over the canyon, and Elias Renner, the Terran who had been shamed, walked proudly as a brother among Ralket warriors. The Ralket capital of Vortak was quieter than usual that morning. Word of the right of the hunt had spread through the city, reaching ears that had long doubted humanity's worth. Whispers circulated among the warriors. The Terran boy survived the Skyfang stalker. He led the hunters. He guided Karath. Many refused to believe it at first. A human, outlasting the fiercest predator? Impossible, they murmured. Yet those who had witnessed the hunt could not deny the truth. Humans were more than fragile. They were clever, courageous, and determined. Elias Renner walked through the city streets with Karath beside him. The Ralket hunters who had shared the forest with him now nodded with respect, some murmuring in the guttural trade tongue. Children who had laughed at him before stared silently, their wide eyes no longer mocking. Elias kept his head high, though exhaustion tugged at every muscle. His arms and legs ached. His body still sore from the trials, but his heart swelled with a sense of belonging he had never felt before. Karath's presence beside him was both protective and affirming. The great hunter did not speak often, but his silence carried authority. The city seemed to shift around them, as if the streets themselves had taken note of Elias's courage. The human delegation gathered in the central plaza to witness the formal recognition of the hunters. Terran ambassadors and aides stood at a distance, faces mixed with awe and relief. They had feared failure, feared that Elias's participation would bring dishonor. Now they were silent, watching history unfold. Karath raised his hand, signaling the Ralket elders. The crowd hushed instantly. Silence was rare among the warriors, and it spoke volumes. The elders rose from their stone thrones, their faces stern, but there was curiosity in their black eyes. "You brought us a child, a weakling of your kind," one elder rumbled, voice echoing over the plaza. We did not expect anything but shame. His gaze fell on Elias, and yet, he has survived the rite of the hunt. He has faced the Skyfang stalker, guided our hunters, and earned the lives of those who mocked him. A murmur ran through the crowd. Some Ralket glanced at each other, uncertainty flickering across their features. Karath stepped forward. His massive frame towered over the assembly. This Terran did not survive by strength alone. He survived by courage, by observation, by wisdom. He acted when others hesitated. He led when others would have died. His tusked jaw was steady, his voice unwavering. The crowd shifted, some leaning forward to hear more clearly. Whispers turned to murmurs of respect. Karath's gaze found Elias again. "And for this I declare him my brother." Silence fell. Then the plaza erupted. The Ralket warriors roared, their voices shaking the stone walls of the city. Some cheered. Some stamped their feet. Even the elders, though reluctant at first, began to nod, acknowledging the unprecedented honor. Elias's heart raced. Karath's words were not just praise, they were recognition of equality. He had been shamed, mocked, and doubted. Now he stood as a brother to one of the fiercest warriors in the galaxy. As the ceremony continued, Elias saw faces of the young hunters who had once jeered at him. Their eyes no longer held mockery. One approached him hesitantly. You saved my life," the young Ralket said. His voice was quiet, almost unsure. I thought humans were weak." Elias nodded slowly, trying to find words. "I only did what I could," he said. "No," the young warrior said firmly. "You did more than any of us could. You led us. You are strong in ways we never understood." Other hunters stepped forward, echoing similar words. Elias felt a warmth in his chest, realizing that his actions had changed perceptions. He had proven that strength was not only measured in muscle, but in courage, intelligence, and heart. Karath clapped a massive hand on Elias's shoulder. "Strength comes in many forms," he said. "And today we have learned that humans have a kind of strength we cannot ignore. Remember this, young brother. Today you are no longer an outsider." Elias's eyes met Karath's, and for the first time he truly understood what it meant to be accepted. The bond between them was solid, not just forged in battle, but in respect, trust, and shared survival. Later, the human delegation approached. The Terran ambassador spoke carefully, trying to maintain diplomacy, but his eyes glimmered with pride. "Elias, your courage has brought honor to our mission. You have shown them that humanity is not weak." Elias smiled quietly. "I only did what I had to. I wanted to survive. I wanted to prove that we are more than what they expected." The ambassador nodded. "You have done more than survive. You have built a bridge between our worlds. The Ralket will remember this day." Elias looked around at the Ralket city, at the warriors who had once mocked him, at the streets and towers that had seemed so alien just days before. He realized that he had changed this world, not with weapons, not with brute force, but with determination, courage, and strategy. The young Ralket children who had laughed at him before now circled around, watching him with awe. One small child asked in a whisper, "Are all Terrans so brave?" Elias crouched to meet the child's gaze. "Not all," he said softly. "But we try, and we never give up no matter what others think." The child nodded slowly, absorbing the lesson. Elias smiled, realizing that the smallest acts of courage could inspire others in ways he had never imagined. Karath stood nearby, watching silently. Then for the first time he addressed the entire gathering of warriors. "Let it be known," he bellowed, voice carrying over the city, "that this Terran fought as one of us. He did not yield when mocked. He did not falter when danger came. Today he is my brother and a warrior among the Ralket. Learn from him, for his courage is as strong as any weapon we wield." The plaza erupted in approval. Warriors stamped their feet, raised weapons, and chanted. The sound was deafening, yet for Elias it was music. He had gone from humiliation to honor, from shame to respect. In the days that followed, the bond between Elias and Karath strengthened. The great hunter took the young Terran under his wing, teaching him more than combat, teaching him patience, observation, and the ways of the wild. Elias learned quickly, not because of raw strength, but because of his mind and heart. The other Ralket hunters began to see the Terran in a new light. Where they had once sneered, they now listened. Where they had doubted, they now respected. The perception of humanity on Vortok had shifted because of one boy's courage. Elias understood something profound. It was not enough to survive. To truly earn respect, one must act with intelligence, bravery, and integrity. His actions had proven that humans were capable of greatness, not in the way of the Ralket, but in their own way, a way the aliens could now recognize and honor. Months later, as the diplomatic mission prepared to leave the planet, Elias stood with Karath overlooking the city from the cliffs above. The two brothers shared a quiet moment, the wind blowing through their hair and fur. "You have done well, Terran," Karath said, his tusked mouth curved slightly. "You have shown our people that strength is more than arms and muscle. It is courage, honor, and mind. Do not forget this. Your people have potential we have only begun to understand." Elias nodded, feeling the weight of his journey. "I will remember, and I will continue to prove it wherever I go." Karath rested a massive hand on his shoulder. "Then go, brother. Go with the knowledge that you have earned your place not only among your people but among ours. And know that you will always have a friend here." Elias looked down at the city, at the warriors and children who now respected him. For the first time he felt the power of gratitude, not just his own but theirs as well. Humans never forgot those who had helped them, and their gratitude could inspire change far beyond what anyone imagined. He turned back to Karath. "Thank you," he said simply. Karath's dark eyes met his. "No, Terran. Today we thank you." And with that, Elias Renner, once shamed and mocked, walked away from Vortok not as a boy, not as a stranger, but as a warrior, a brother, and a symbol of humanity's enduring courage. The stars above seemed to shine brighter that night, stretching across the alien sky. Elias looked up, smiling. He had faced shame, danger, and disbelief, and he had emerged stronger. Not by lifting a great spear, not by matching muscle for muscle, but by using the one thing humans possessed in abundance: heart, mind, and relentless courage. And somewhere in the wilds of Vortok, Karath the Unyielding watched the night, knowing that a bond had been forged between their worlds that could never be broken. The young Terran had not just survived. He had changed everything.